The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions, and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
No! I'm going down to Alphabet Street. I'm gonna crown this girl that I meet. I'm gonna talk so.
It is Tuesday night. Wait. I'm going to do it this way. Tuesday, December 18th, 2018. Welcome to the F word. Okay, so that's my voiceover. Thank you for calling, voice. Welcome to the F word, everybody. This is Kathy, if you haven't figured it out by now with that voice. My voice, though, is tonight not the happiest it's ever been because my throat hurts. So I've got a couple people to help me with that talking thing. Of course, I've got my wonderful friend Don Choi on tonight, and then Don, introduce our friend that you have brought to me today.
Oh yeah, Kathy, I am back. It's my favorite show, of course, the F word, because
you can say whatever F word you want. That's why.
I know. I have been bleeped before. Jimmy's not happy with me, but Kathy, I've got a really, really awesome friend.
I agree with you. Yes, that's an F word too, by the way.
I'm really honored tonight because we've got a real cool guest tonight. His name is Kirtus. Dixon, and Kirtus is so unique in the fact that he spells Kirtus Kirtus.
I know.
It really should be spelled.
Freaking cool as hell.
Oh, it's so cool. And Kirtus, you there?
Absolutely, Don. I had myself muted so you couldn't hear me laughing for the first minute long of the introduction. Glad to be here. You guys make it fun.
Thank you for calling. Yes. No, I didn't do that right. Thank you for calling. So press 1 if you'd like to. No, that's a different call.
I'm ready to order whatever you're selling right now.
Yes. That's a different job that I have late at night. Yeah. No, what? Okay. So go ahead. Sorry. I did take cold medicine, so just so I'm warning you guys, so. I'm going to mute myself.
All right. I'll go for anything.
Well, Kirtus, I'm gonna help Kathy out here because Kathy's she's grabbing for that cough drop right here. But this show is all about the F word. So, Kirtus, tell us before you share your story with us. Wow us with your first F word. What is that F word? And please tell the world why.
All right. Oh, man. Okay. So it's funny because I've got my list of F words right here in front of me. I did do a little prepreparation, right, to be ready for tonight's show. I appreciate y'all having me on.
It's preparation. It's preparation F, not
direction.
preparation H, right?
There we go. I'm going to go with fluency.
Ooh.
Fluency. So I just stood up from my chair, right? So y'all roll with me here for a little bit. So I'm down in South Texas, San Antonio, Texas, which you may or may not know is about 150 miles from the Texas-Mexico border, right? And
nice.
I grew up in a Hispanic border town called Laredo, Texas.
I've heard of it.
And my background, my parents, my mom's Hispanic, and my dad is the opposite of Hispanic. He's from Arkansas.
Wow.
And
that's
a funny match, right? From the day it started. And so, growing up in South Texas, in Laredo, Texas, right? I was a little bit too white to be brown. Right? Mm-hmm. And then as my life's evolved, I've always been a little bit too brown to be white, right? So it's a weird mix for me. Like I haven't ever, I feel like, where I'm from sort of just fit in. So here's why the word fluency matters to me. Because growing up in Laredo, Texas, not speaking Spanish, it was kind of a challenge to get along, right? With the other kids, with the jargon, with the slang, like and my mom, even though I was Hispanic and spoke Spanish, she didn't teach us. And I found out later in life kind of why, and I never really knew why. So I didn't learn Spanish, right? So I wasn't fluent in another language. So here's what I think is really interesting about the concept of fluency. The concept of fluency is really just the ability to articulate yourself clearly many times in another language, but the languages I became fluent in weren't necessarily English and Spanish per se. I became fluent in the languages of relationship building and sports and music and school. I was a bit of a nerd. And so there's a lot of, I'm looking at my picture of Tupac right now on my wall, right? Even though I'm a 40-year-old man in my office.
I love
So there's a lot of different things that I grew up speaking and learning. And fast forward 18 years, I met my wife, who actually happens to be from Minnesota, about as far apart as two worlds could be, right? Not to talk religion, but I come from a Christian family. She's Jewish. And so again, just as far apart as worlds could be. But at 18 years old, I met my soon-to-be wife, who became my best friend. And now, 20 years later, we've been together ever since. She taught me, I feel like, the rest of the languages that I didn't know. Whether that be love, exposure, geography. I had never eaten a bagel at 18 years old. I had never been in snow, right?
What?
So it's crazy how your experiences make you fluent in the various languages of life, right? So that's my F word today, fluency. I feel like that's something that I'm passionate about, something that I teach my kids, my children. I do speak Spanish now, good enough to get by. I wouldn't say proficient, but I'm fluent after a couple of cervezas.
Yes.
So,
Muy caliente.
so that's my F word to kick off. Don't know if that was the direction we wanted to go, but that's
I love it. No, that's beautiful because, and I'm quite fluent when I'm in Cabo. And actually, my friends say that I speak in tongues because all kinds of different languages come out. But I get the word across that I want a cerveza or tequila or the baño because I gotta go there after all those cervezas. But what a neat, so your wife, one of the things, so she went, Don, you don't know this, but she went to the same high school as I did quite a few years after. I destroyed it for her. I went there just 1 year. I went there 1 year, and it was the last year that they had the pit where we could smoke cigarettes. Back in those days, yes. I took the mascot name of Skippers very seriously and skipped a lot. And yeah, so she comes from good stock, and I am sure she is nothing like I was.
You never know. I feel like she may have been able to follow in some of those footsteps based on the stories you tell.
Yep.
Oh yeah. We have a running joke, right? I went to college to be an engineer, and I joked with her that most of her boyfriends worked at gas stations. That was like our running joke.
Yep.
Because that was who she thought was cool, was like the gas station boyfriend attendant that would buy her cigarettes and smokes like as a teenager, right? So it's kind of funny. Like maybe. My wife was definitely the rebellious type. Yeah. She's definitely the alternative type. I was a little bit of kind of a nerd, and like I said, just kind of went to school focused. But what's funny is for focus.
Okay, focus. Let's talk about that focus.
So we'll go a different direction. It's funny, so with focus, I went to school at 18 years old on a National Hispanic Scholarship, which is the same as like a National Merit Scholarship. So it was an educational scholarship to the University of Oklahoma. And my wife just wanted to get as far away from Minnesota as she could, and her parents, so she went to the University of Oklahoma on an alumni scholarship. And so we met there, and I went to school focused on becoming an engineer. And instead, the next 5 years, I spent courting and falling more in love with my wife. And I of course kept going to school too. But it's funny how just one moment, one thing, one person can completely shift your focus and change your life. My focus at that point then was on doing anything I could to get a better relationship with this girl that I love, that I believed at that time I was already going to marry. And it started to open up a whole new set of things for me at that time, like in my professional ambitions too. It's funny how sometimes just that right combination of things and people can create a totally different set of circumstances. And so that's when kind of my entrepreneurial itch started to happen while I was in college. I was pushing my wife to pursue her passions, and she in turn was doing the same for me. And, you know, you have those long college nights and a lot of different things, but a lot of times you end up talking, you end up sharing your hopes, your dreams, you're talking to a whole new set of people, you're exposed to a whole new separate set of, you know, a whole new world from what you're exposed to, and your focus can shift. And for me, in college, aside from wanting to marry this girl from Minnesota, the rest of my focus, and it was really weird, like all I could think about was starting businesses. I was in school to be an engineer. I had an amazing job. I was working for a company that later on went public. I was one of their first ever petroleum engineering interns, and literally I was trying to start magazines, and I was trying to do other different entrepreneurial ventures. You know, my parents and everybody were like, don't do that. Don't do that. That's a terrible idea. You're in school. Focus on school. And still to this day, I say I wish I had just dropped out of college and started my first company at 20 years old instead of waiting until I was, you know, 20, 27, 28 years old to start my first company.
Yeah, there's a lot of people I hear that from. There's a lot of people that I know of that are highly successful that actually did drop out of college or not even go. So it's all that focus. That's what it is.
It really is. And yeah, I could go totally, you know, I could go down a big rabbit hole about just kind of the education system and all that sort of stuff. And I believe, you know, anybody can make any path they want work to some degree. Right. You know, just perseverance, align yourself with the right people, have a big enough dream, and even if you don't love what you're doing, you know, believe in it as a stepping stone to get you to that next place. And so I think anybody can take anything and, you know, make something great out of it. But I definitely don't agree or believe that, you know, you need that specific college education. You know, when you realize, like, what your focus is, what you want it to be, and when you have that vision, you know, no matter how long or short term, right, you should be able to run straight at that, you know, and I really believe that. And I teach that to my 10-year-old son, you know. That doesn't mean I don't hope he goes to college and, you know, does whatever makes him happy, but at the same time, he's 10 years old right now, and his dream for the last 4 years has been to play professional basketball someday. And so, you know, at 10 years old, that's what we talk about on a daily basis, how to get there, what the focus takes, what you're going to need to do, kind of work you're going to need to put in, you know, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I'm a big advocate for pursuing your dreams and chasing that goal.
And let me ask you, you know, how tall is everybody in your family? Are his chances of being tall pretty good?
He's probably 6'2" to 6'4" is what the doctors say. I'm right at 6 foot. Perfect. Most of the men in my family are between 6 and 6'3". Yep. My wife's side has up to about 6'5". I have a couple cousins that are 6'6", 6'7". So he's got the shot. You know, it might be a long shot genetically. But we have a joke about his posture, right? So my son and I, we like to have little reminders. So instead of being like that nagging dad that's just, you know, critiquing him or challenging him, we come up with, like, we communicate, right? Because I believe in being fluent in speaking his language. So in private, we come up with ways that I can remind him of things in public. So for example, when he's hanging out with his friends, I don't want to say, sit up straight, Jackson. That's my son's name, right? So I say, hey, Jax, 5'11" or 6'5"? And what that means to him is check your posture, sit up straight, you know? And so those are the kinds of things, you know, that we definitely talk about and believe in. And I think, again, just that focus to it. You know, I don't know enough about the musculature and skeletal system to say that sitting up straight doesn't make you taller, you know? My mom used to tell me not to slouch. Now I only grew to 6 foot, so if he sits up straight, maybe he'll be 6'4".
There you go. Well, as the mother of 3 boys that I know of, I've got... Thank you for laughing. I'm here all week. My oldest is 6'5", and my middle son, he's my short one. He's 6'1", and then and then the baby, the 19-year-old, he's 6'3", but I think he's growing. Might even be taller than that now. But basketball, yeah. I mean, they did all the sports, the football, everything else, but you know, it was never their passion. So that's good. I mean, they liked it, don't get me wrong, but like my oldest son is an architect, but he still plays basketball, and he also plays music and writes music and performs in, you know, public venues. And my younger 2 also are, you know, artistically talented as well. So it's fun to see what they are as young men. Then you have your little girls too, to see what they end up doing with it. Oh, And if he's already got that desire, because I do know a lot of pro athletes, I know some that didn't decide to play until they was a senior in high school. I know some that, just like Jackson. I mean, he wants it, and he'll do everything he can if that's what he really wants. So that's cool. That's focus.
That's where the word fan comes from, right? It's fanatical.
Yes.
And some F words. I'm just going through my thesaurus here. I've got it bust. Not that I really have a thesaurus.
I love it.
No, that's definitely that's where he's at in his life. And like you said, it is part of the fun. Like I was laughing when thinking about the North of Minnesota. Right? You've got all that Nordic influence and all those good genes. Like when we travel to Minnesota every summer, because we do try to spend summers in Minnesota for my wife. He's definitely not the tallest kid out there at his age range like he is down here. He's like 5'1" in 5th grade. It's pretty good size. He's probably the top 20 percentile in South Texas. But we get up to Minnesota and he's just right smack in the middle. Just there's so much height up there.
Vikings,
and it's good though, that diversity. And he has to be flexible. We talk about it all the time. And I don't want to go too much into
flexible. I don't think I've used flexible yet. That's another show.
Well, just so you know, I'm just not physically flexible. They call me the human stretcher, meaning I can't stretch and I'm stiff as a board.
Hey, it comes with the age, I think, Don. Every time I do a sit-up, I feel like I'm just like, I'm not quite going up as far as I used to, right? I think that's just what happens over time. But no, you can maintain flexibility of mind, right? So like that's something I think is pretty unique to aging, in my opinion. Is like when you're young, you don't realize how flexible your thoughts and feelings are, how much you're willing to bend and give, and how many things you go through every single day, and you just kind of shrug them off. And for me, like as I've gotten older, my wife jokes with me like, "Hey, you need to do this because you need to stay flexible. I want you to make this decision even though you may not want to make it, because I want you to maintain that ability to fire on all those cylinders." And I think that's a pretty interesting like concept also to sort of keep tabs on, is just like not getting rigid as you go through life, as you become, in some cases maybe jaded, in other cases maybe more experienced, more mature. Just like maintaining that flexibility is something that's kind of cool. And I think that's, for me, like, I go back to my family a lot, of course, like you mentioned, Kathy, I do have my son. I've got 2 daughters. They're actually our beautiful, newly adopted daughters, Taylor and Annabelle. They're 3 and 2. And I have my best friend of 20 years and amazing wife, Megan. And I have a huge extended family, too. My mom is one of 12 siblings, and my dad is one of 11. So I have like 300 people in my family, if you count legit cousins and aunts and uncles and stuff. But the other thing I think that keeps me focused on that idea of agility and flexibility and all that sort of stuff is just the idea of being an entrepreneur, right? So many of us that have chosen this profession as our professional journey, like you fail a lot, and you have to adapt a lot, and you have to reboot a lot, and you have to reinvent a lot. And to steal a word from the tech sector, you have to pivot a lot, right, and adjust your ideas. And I think there's something to be said for maintaining that mental, spiritual, emotional flexibility, right? Even if we can't touch our toes like we used to be able to.
Right, exactly. So you know what? I want to touch on something. So one of the things, like failing, when you're doing different businesses, or even in failing in friendship. I've noticed this last year. Sorry. This last year has been pretty much a year of revelations, where people have been revealing themselves as to, what? Yeah, I'm not real fond of how they are. I'm thinking of a word, if you can look up a word that just is not very favorable, in their fervor. I don't know. But
wow.
I'm
going deep there, Don.
I'm pulling.
Don's Googling right now.
Oh, yeah.
But you know what? I mean, there's people that just haven't been a good match. Their character is not that which you thought it was. And I've been, doing a lot of soul searching and really finding things out, about, okay, who do I want to work with and who do I not want to work with? Because one of the things when you are an entrepreneur, I mean, you have freedom. And that's one of the words that you had brought up. And having the freedom to work with who you want. Because, the only thing that you fail, you lose money. But you know what? The only thing you can't get back is the time. And so what are you going to do to make up for that? And what are you going to do to make sure that you are, what's an F word for maximizing? But, maximizing the time that is being spent on what you want to get accomplished.
And that's there's a lot to unpack there, right? That's a huge question. And what's funny is you and I met for the first time today. We spoke earlier today. Don and I, even though we've crossed paths and we partner in various businesses in real estate capacity with the same individuals, he and I really had our first ever long, substantial conversation. But I feel like instant friendship was made when I talked to each of you, in the last day or so. But so I kind of, oddly enough, I've had a similar set of experiences to you over the past year or so, and mine might extend, even to about the last 2 years with regards to the various friendships. And for me, a lot of my friends, what's funny is personality-wise, I'm a borderline extrovert-introvert. So I'm extroverted in certain circumstances, I'm introverted in others. You heard me say, my background was engineering, but I also love entrepreneurship and business development and public speaking and training and coaching. So I'm a pretty unique blend, I think, inside, kind of behind the scenes. And so a lot of times my friends are actually my business partners and colleagues. Those are the majority of my friends.
Yeah, and they should be, I think.
If you're lucky, I think that's what's kind of cool.
When you're an entrepreneur, it's nice to have that extra support.
It's been what's needed for me, because my first entrepreneurial ventures were actually in a new city. So, and my wife and I had just moved from LA to Austin, Texas, and I was working a corporate job, and I decided I was going to start my first business, and I partnered up with a friend from LA who I had worked with for years, and that is who became my first business partner. And I've had since then another 4 business partners in different ventures total, and I built a great friendship with all of them. But what you were kind of talking about, this isn't a word that you brought up, but I'm going to bring another F word up here: fracture.
Ooh,
so what happens in relationships so often is there's a small fracture, and I think about this story. It's kind of a funny story, not too funny, but I've talked a lot about my son in basketball. Obviously, my world revolves around my professional life and then my family, and so I coach my son's basketball team. We live, sleep, and breathe and talk basketball when we're not talking about real estate and the growth of my real estate team, which he's a big part of. He's got goals and ambitions, and he knows my numbers, and they're his numbers, and we talk about them. But on the basketball side, I remember this day. It was about 2.5 years ago, and it was a May day, and my son was going to try out for what they call out here a club basketball team, which is kind of, they play in tournaments, they play high competitive levels, and as a daddy coach, I was apprehensive to let this tryout happen in the first place because I wasn't sure if he was ready, right? And he really was excited about it. He's looking forward to it all day, and then it's about 4 p.m., and I get this text message, and it's from the coach, and he says, hey, no practice, no tryouts tonight, sorry, there was a pipe that burst in the gym. And I get home, and I have to tell my son, and he's really bummed out. And so, no problem. He puts on his basketball shoes and just says, hey, can we go play outside instead? So I put on some sandals, and I'm just going to go shoot around with him. And then our neighbors are playing in the driveway. And there's a dad and a son there, and we're friends with them too, right? And my son says, Dad, let's play them 2-on-2. And I said, I don't know, man, because honestly, my son is he's 3 grades younger than the boy, and that kid outweighed him at the time by about 40 pounds. And then I'm much better at basketball than the dad, so I didn't want it to go be this weird battle. Son gets out there and gets hurt. And as a dad, those are kind of things you sometimes fear, right? You make a decision based on fear. And he says, please, 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 Dad. So I decide I'm just going to go out and play with him. So we're playing this game, and the reason I tell this is just to kind of share, why this happened. So we're playing this game, and we're beating them really badly, and my son's giving it all he's got, against this 7th grader. My son's in 4th grade at the time, or 3rd grade, he's 6th grade, something like that. And so there's this play where a ball gets loose, and my son goes to chase him down, and he tries to keep the kid from getting the ball. He puts his body between the kid and the ball, and the kid falls on top of him and smushes him on the concrete. And instantly, my little son, all of 70 pounds or whatever he is, big old kid laying on top of him, my son just pops up, holding his wrist, and his tears are already streaming, but he's not crying. And you as a parent, it's broken, right?
Yep.
He knows it's broken. He heard it break, and, I ask, is it okay? And he goes, no, it's broken. And we start walking towards the house, because we live in a cul-de-sac. We're walking right across the street. And I'm as a dad, I'm thinking, maybe it's not. You never know. Let me see. So he takes his hand off, and, he has no strength in his wrist. You can tell it's broken. And so we walk in the door, and my wife sees him, and she says, what's wrong? She looks at it for 10 seconds. And here's the thing that nobody would dispute. As a parent, as a human, you see another human with that sort of injury, like a broken bone, you go straight to the doctor, right? You go straight to the hospital, and they take the x-ray. Sure enough, it's broken. They put a cast on, and then the pain is over. Like the first 2 hours of a broken bone hurts, and then you get the cast, and you get some painkillers, and you're good to go. And now your cast is set, your bone is taken care of, and for the next 3 months, 6 months, you heal, right? That is how you care for a fractured or broken bone. But here's what's crazy, and I'm going to close this thing up with a point. Here's what's crazy about ourselves, I think, as humans, and I had this epiphany about a month ago, and I shared it with some folks, and it really resonated with a lot of different people. I think many times we, as individuals, we get fractured emotionally or spiritually or mentally, but what we do is, number one, we don't show it to anybody so that they can help us decide if we do have a fracture or not. Number two, we put it away as quickly as we can without acknowledging the need for some care or some treatment, right? And then if you think about that analogy of a fracture, it continues to compound. The next little occurrence or event that happens that may have not been that significant, but on top of a fractured spirit or fractured soul, really, really hurts and really, really does some damage. And we never stop to go get examined and get it treated and put it in a metaphoric cast so we can heal, right? And so as you talk about friendships, as I talk about fractures, I think one of the biggest things that I've done this year and that I've realized is I've allowed myself to heal from some of those wounds, because as an entrepreneur who, you mix up your life, professional and personal, and you get entangled with relationships, and your life, is either up or down based on your successes, your failures, and your experiences at that point. But so many times, like, you keep going, right? You just get up off the mat and you keep going, and you go on to the next one because you're going to succeed, and you do succeed, but it doesn't really ever heal some of those fractures, those fractures in friendships, those fractures internally. And so, honestly, where you're catching me right now is on the heel of a really great year from a business perspective, one of the best years I've ever had in real estate, one of the best businesses I've ever been a part of that I actually didn't have to start myself. Maybe we'll get into that a little bit later. But I have been healing. I've been allowing some fractures to heal up. And I've been, reaching out to old friends. I've been sharing more honestly with new friends and new business partners. And, it's been really therapeutic. And I think Don and I don't know how deep we went on our first conversation, but we probably talked for an hour. And, even though we were talking about business, we ended up talking about life and love and, and faith and all that other sort of stuff. So it's all part of the recipe.
No, and sometimes, speaking of faith, your faith can be fractured by a lot of these events that happen through all of it, and it does take the setting back and healing. And now I'm starting to get stuffy, so I am going to let you guys talk more because I'm going to start sneezing.
Oh, bless you! I hear it coming.
I know, right? But It's so good to hear the way that you put that out there. Okay, I'm going mute, you guys.
So I'll finish up the story, Don, and you take it where you want to go. So here's what's crazy. This is getting to one of my core principles, right? My core tenets of something that I truly believe. And again, I've only started to learn this stuff through being more open and honest and communicative off like through all my platforms and all the people I interact with. So I told that story that I just told you about my bones and the brokenness and all that stuff. I put that up in an Instagram video, and I only have like a couple thousand followers. I'm nothing crazy on Instagram, but I put it up there, and I just shared a 60-second video, and I told that same thing. I kind of summarized that little story. And I'm at this event maybe 3 weeks later, and I'm here in San Antonio, my local city, and this guy walks up to me. He's a mortgage lender, and I know him. We've spent some time together. We've had some adult beverages together. We've been around the same friends, but he and I don't have what I would say a deep personal connection, or at least I didn't think we did, right? So he walks up to me and he goes, "Dude, that video was effing crazy." And I was like, "What video? What are you talking about?" He's like, "That thing on Instagram with the bones and the breaking and the fractures." And I was like, "Oh, you watched that video?" He goes, "Kirtus, I'm hurting, man. I've been upside down. My world's been dark. Things have been terrible." And like, this is a guy that, I only see at functions, we shake hands, and he's successful in my eyes. He makes money. He has a great family. He's got great kids. He's got a great business. He's a business owner, and this guy's telling me he's like, he heard what I said and he wants to talk about it. And I was like, oh my goodness. And so that sort of helped me recognize the impact that we all have on others, like every single day. Like what you're doing, what you're putting out there, what you're saying to people in the world, how you're encouraging or discouraging, how you're building up or breaking down, how you're teaching, coaching, or you're, ignoring and muting, whatever you're doing, like you're making a huge impact, And so I think it's up to us and to design that impact, to make sure we're deliberate, like as soon as we talk to each other, I just appreciated the introduction. You introduced me to Kathy, and here we are tonight.
Here we are.
You just never know. You never know what impact you're going to have on others and how it might help connect with other folks. So,
absolutely, you never know. Actually, you know what, Kirtus? The word fractured. I don't like that word. It, I think the emotion that elates is really pain, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's a bone fracture or whether you're fracturing a relationship, but it does resonate a feeling and a sense and a mood because Kirtus, I as you have had the pleasure to really spend some quality time in the real estate industry, the real estate profession, i.e. specifically the real estate salesperson or the real estate agent or the real estate advisor. So my question to you, is that profession, is it becoming a lost art, and is it becoming fractured?
I love it. Man, that's a phenomenal question,
Wow.
Don. What a great segue. This guy's a pro, no doubt in my mind. That is a tremendous question. And in short, the answer is yes. The profession and the industry is fractured. And I made that observation as soon as I entered into the real estate market. And, my background, I actually came from oil and gas. You guys heard me mention a couple of times. I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. I built and sold companies. And so I entered the real estate market like a lot of people do to get into real estate investments and the investing side of the house. And what I found pretty quickly was the average seller out there had no idea about the real estate market. And unfortunately, what I found was the real estate market was made up of, as I know it has been for 100 years, it was made up of a mix of professionals, amateurs, recreational agents, and then people that really just don't even represent the profession, so I'm not going to give it a title, and those are the folks trying to take advantage of these distressed sellers in tough situations. And so I just sort of lay that out there. Fast forward, now my life is in residential real estate primarily, a little bit of commercial here, kind of on the side. I'm part of one of the fastest growing real estate brokerages in U.S. history. I've got a team of 60-plus agents across the country. And so now, I've had a deeper look behind the curtain in the real estate world, and I know with even more certainty that it's made up of predominantly those three types of agents that I talked about, the professional, the amateur, and the recreational agent, right? But here's the really cool thing about this profession is the folks who are involved in it, most of them get in it for the same reason. They want to create freedom. They want freedom of time, freedom of money. They want to create financial freedom for themselves, their family, their kids in the future, right? So that's usually why people enter the real estate market. So most people have, they get into real estate with good ambitions. They get into real estate with really good intentions. But where the failure comes in and the fractures come in is so many times the agent A and agent B that may have similar work ethic, similar motivation, similar inspiration, may end up either flourishing or failing based on where they land, right? We're both a product of our genetics, so let's call that our internal makeup, our will and fortitude, and we're a product of our environment, right? So the real estate market in any given city, especially the major metros, is made up of hundreds, in most cases, of real estate brokerages, large and small and of every size, made up of tens of thousands of real estate agents. Our city, I think we're at 15,000 licensed realtors in an up market right now. In other major metros, they're in
just
2-3 times that
and
size.
I'm sorry, and that's in just your city? 15,000?
That's in our city. That's in San Antonio, Texas.
Wow.
Almost 15,000 licensed real estate professionals. Licensed real estate agents, I should say, because they're not all professionals, right?
Right.
They're entering at different levels. And so, again, that fracture is crazy because the average buyer or seller, the average consumer, the average individual who's making one of the largest purchases or investments they're ever going to make in their life, who should be acquiring an asset, has no idea on the surface level whether or not they're getting an amateur, a recreational, or a professional agent. And you think about that, that's crazy. Imagine just walking into a doctor's office and you have no idea if you're getting, a person who's never practiced medicine, a 20-year trained professional, or somebody in between. And just think about that as an industry. That is crazy. That's crazy. And so my platform right now, my current mission and where I'm at, what I aspire to do, is to try and elevate the professional within this industry. Because I believe the amateur agents and the recreational agents, given the right support, structure, training, resources, motivation, encouragement, self-development, like you think about children in school, no kid left behind, you know what I mean? Like you can put people through a system that will help them end up as great, functional, successful members of society. But believe it or not, in the real estate profession, it's kind of archaic, and that doesn't exist for every single agent. That exists for the select lucky few that end up with the right brokerage or end up with the right mentor or end up with the right this or the right that. And, definitely there's still a percentage that are going to succeed no matter what. But if you think about a bell curve, the majority of the top 10%, you put them in any industry, in any market, in any profession, they're going to succeed. And then there's 10 or 20% that aren't going to do anything no matter what you give them. But that middle 60 to 80%, those are the folks that could succeed and would succeed if this industry wasn't as fractured as it is. And so I believe there's a huge opportunity. The cool thing about fracture, here's the cool thing. I'm going to go back to my tech terms. We didn't talk tech entrepreneurship. That's where I spent 10 years in Austin, Texas, building technology companies, working on software and different things. Here's the super cool thing about a fractured market. It is ripe for roll-up. So in a fractured market, when you have a lot of small players, when you have a lot of different varieties and levels of professional, of businesses, of et cetera, there's a huge opportunity for something or someone big to come in and really build a massive amount of momentum in that industry. And so that's what I see is a huge opportunity right now in real estate. What I think is happening, Don, to address that fracture is, and of course I'm biased. I'm blessed, I believe, to be on the forefront of that wave as it's happening. I really do see it happening. But there's the ability right now with how technology works and everything to get on-demand education and training and support and resources and all that kind of stuff, and to help all of these people truly pursue that freedom that they set out to achieve, right, in real estate. Like, you don't need to be 80 years old still out there selling and knocking on doors and putting signs in the yard in this profession. You shouldn't be. You should be planning for your financial future. You should be trying to create that wealth, and, that should be your mindset, whether you're 20 years old or you're 40 years old or you're 60 years old. That's, to me, what you should be thinking about right now for your family and for your future is how can you leverage the opportunities in front of you to really go out and and make that happen. So,
Wow.
sorry, Don, that was a totally crazy
Wow,
direction, man,
loved
but that's
it.
where I went.
No, it's you don't have to apologize. I think the people you have to apologize to are the people that just heard that are lost and more fractured. Curtis.
They need
What do
a
we say to
doctor. Is there a doctor
They
in the
need-
house?
Oh yeah, Jimmy. Where are you, Jimmy? We gotta call the urgent care doctor in
Yes,
Woburn, Mass.
in Woburn.
Woburn. In Woburn. Urgent care center in Woburn. Call the doctor.
I don't know if they're popping up everywhere up there, but there are literally urgent cares on every corner in South
Right,
Texas. or something.
minute
That's
clinics.
an emerging franchise. I have no idea why.
Why bother even going? Okay, you know what, you guys? I have Lyme disease, and I was going to all these doctors. I ended up getting a sty on my eye. I sound like Rosanna Dana. There's this little thing here, but that's before your time, guys, you know. But I went to the Minute Clinic at CVS. I was just like, okay, you know what? I'm too vain for this fucking sty. There, I said the word, Jimmy. Listen.
Thank you.
But I go, give me a drop or whatever. And she's like, so, you know, and I was telling her, I was like, oh my God, I'm so tired and I ache and blah, 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 blah. It took the nurse assistant at CVS to diagnose me. She goes, you know what? You need to leave here, go to urgent care because it sounds like you have Lyme disease. And that was from over a year of me going,
Wow.
I got this going on, this going on, this going on. But yeah, so all these little things that are popping up, you know, because so many of us are too busy or to want to make that doctor's appointment. And so
Well, you know what, Kathy?
fast.
You know,
That's the F
it's,
word. Fast. We want it now.
That
Make it
is
better.
that is one tough. I'll tell you, that is one tough disease to battle. But you know, you got Lyme disease. I've got Lyme disease. Okay. My wife says that
Lyme.
I just cannot stop lying. So did you take out the trash? Yes, I did. It's sitting in the garage. It's not in the garbage can. It's in the garage,
I
though.
took it out.
Right? Right? Did you
No,
did you pay
no.
last month's cell phone bill? I did. Well, how come my cell phone don't work?
You
Oh yeah, that's
That was
right.
last
I
month.
paid the
You
month
made me-
before, not this month.
made me think, okay, so I live in Chanhassen, and Curtis, I live across the street from Paisley Park, so you know where I'm at.
Oh, yeah.
So you know the area.
Yep.
So when you said, did you take out the trash, it made me think of Vanity 6. No, that's something he used to do. Now he's taking out me. But that's, that's an old Prince line. But it made me think of that.
Oh, man.
Oh,
You gotta get a Prince reference in. You gotta get a Prince reference in. I have a t-shirt that says, I gotta purify myself in the waters of Lake Minnetonka. And what's funny is nowadays that's a Dave Chappelle show reference.
Yes.
And back
Oh,
in the
yeah.
day, that was just a Prince reference.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well. So Curtis,
Yeah.
you know, we talked about fracture, and obviously you gave a great highlight about what's happening in the real estate industry. And all kidding aside, and me being stupid, you know, my mind's in different places. I mean, I don't know. At some point during your conversation, I was thinking about cannabis. I God knows why, but
Probably because you were smoking it. Who knows?
no, I think
That's
he was
Jimmy.
talking.
So Jimmy has
No.
a show, by the way, called Pot Talk, just so you know.
Oh, Pot Talk. Okay, that's the
Yeah.
wrong show, but I know why, because he said
Next week.
he said recreational and something else, and it made me think of cannabis. Yeah, yeah,
Recreational user.
yeah, recreational user. But anyhow, so here's the question for you here. In all seriousness, right? We've got people here that are in the real estate trade, real estate profession. I know you're doing some great things, man, because you're changing people's lives in the real estate business. There's a lot of, I mean, I've got friends myself. These are good people. They want to make the dive. They sell 3-4 houses a year part-time, but they can't make the jump because the financial leap, right, Curtis? And the training, they're brokers. There's a lot of good brokers out there that provide good training. The problem is that the training is, you know, during the day when they're at their full-time job. So any ideas or any suggestions for the people that have a license here and have a passion and love for serving people out there to help getting their dream homes? Any ideas or suggestions or any comments or any way that you can provide some insight? Because I know you're doing something special out there, not just in San Antonio, but all over the U.S. Tell us.
Yeah.
Sure, Don. So y'all teed it up, so I have to go here, right? As a guest, I do my best to kind of share my thoughts and my perspective. But of course, I'm always glad to talk about my real business and kind of get down to the opportunity that I'm very grateful for, that I think really exists out there for right now for any real estate professional. That's what I'm going to talk about specifically. But I really do believe with where we're at, Kathy talks about things being fast, us wanting things faster and on demand. I listen to interviews by like Elon Musk, and I listen to interviews by, forward thinkers and people, to steal Wayne Gretzky's line, that aren't where the puck is, but where the puck's going, right?
Right.
And so that's who I spend my time trying to learn from it, and that's the filter that I try to process my thoughts and decisions through, right? So I believe in most industries right now, there are one or two or three forward-thinking companies or opportunities, right? In real estate specifically, I'm part of a company right now. The brokerage is called eXp Realty, national brokerage, not a franchise. We're not in multiple locations. We're national, all 50 states. And here's probably the most forward-thinking and unique thing about this. We are about 15,000 agents strong right now all across the country. We're less than 10 years old. Our founder, Glenn Sanford, had the foresight 10 years ago to build this brokerage 100% in what we would call the cloud, which means online, virtually. No bricks and mortar, no offices, no overhead for the company, no expenses outside of staff and technology, right? So that was unbelievably advanced thinking 10 years ago. We're publicly traded, and we compensate realtors in 3 different ways. Our training is second to none in the industry. Our culture, think about Facebook and another F word, right? And what it's done for just your individual consumer life, right? We buy stuff through Facebook. We read shit on Facebook. We watch videos. We publish videos. We talk to our family and friends all on Facebook, right? It has shrunk the world.
Yeah.
So this real estate brokerage, as I talked about, I believe the industry is ripe for a roll-up, right? There's all that needs to happen is some smart, loving visionary to extend and open his arms and pull in everybody, Don, who wants to go from 4 sales to 10. Everybody who wants to go from 10 to 20. Everybody who has ambitions of building a team. Everybody who has ambitions of building a long-term business or passive residual income on top of their commissions and become a stock equity owner, right? So that's what this company provides, eXp Realty. That's the opportunity. It's been unbelievably life-changing for me, for hundreds of my friends across the country. And so I do speak really passionately about this, not just because I'm drinking the Kool-Aid or subjective in the moment. I'm a 12-year entrepreneur. I've failed a dozen times in my own companies. I've been behind the scenes and in conversations and in rooms with billionaires and sat in the boardroom and looked and listened to their strategies, right? And I haven't seen anything like this before. I haven't seen this business model. I haven't seen so much alignment. You want to talk about how you seal fractures, Don? Think about this. Think about this. When you put a cast around a bone, it makes sure that the breaks are aligned so that your body can naturally grow them back together, right? So it's not an F word, but alignment is how you heal fractures. And what's that?
I just added an F to the front of it.
Absolutely.
Fucking alignment, right? So you dropped the F word first, so I could drop a second. Alignment is how you heal fractures. And so, just that little plug for what I'm doing, my business, my brokerage. Never before in any business that I've been a part of that is this large and this massive have there been this much alignment with the agent's goals, their clients, which are the buyers and sellers, consumers' goals, and the brokerage's goals. So you think about that, and if you're listening to this and you're a realtor and you aspire to be a professional real estate agent and you're wondering what you're missing the alignment from your brokerage. that's what you're missing. And so that's what's going on here. Tons of classes. I teach a bunch of classes in the cloud. I'm a certified mentor. I love the education component of the business. I've got 7 junior agents and I'm mentoring. It's just really cool. And it's really well thought out. The technology is unbelievable. The platform is great. There's a lot of ways you can check it out and hear about us and reach out to a friend or email us. Anybody can find me on Instagram or Kirtus Dixon, KirtusDixon @gmail.com. Like, anybody can reach out to me anytime. I'm glad to share the model. That's what I spend a lot of my time doing, is really sharing my belief about elevating the real estate profession. And it just so happens that I believe I'm building my real estate business on the best platform going out there for real estate professionals.
That's awesome. So what was your website again?
So I didn't actually give my website. Depending on if or when you go to this, it may or may not be up. But you can go to KirtusDixon.com. That's my personal website.
Okay.
KirtusDixon.com. It's getting redesigned at the moment, but it hopefully will be up here when you hit it. And if not, there's enough buttons you can click around and find me. I'm also on Instagram at Kirtus.Dixon. And then my personal email address is KirtusDixon@gmail.com.
Lovely. So anybody that has any questions, obviously you want to say you heard Kirtus on the F word. Sure. Go ahead, Don.
I've got something that I want to bring up here, because this is just this is getting dangerous,
sounded
because
like it's like he's got some candy or something.
Oh no! I mean, I'm just smoked 2 joints this whole time. I've got some phenomenal stuff right now that's got me saying hi.
Phenomenal is an F word when you're high, by the way.
He talks about his cloud. Let me tell you about the cloud I'm in right now. All right, so Kirtus, here's a question here for you.
Sorry.
Before I lose my thought here, okay? You talked about alignment here. You've talked about, what I mean, share with me. I look at the word mentor, and of all the things I always think about, I'm not trying to be morbid here, guys, but I do think about the end of life, and I think about, geez, before I take my last breath, I wonder what Kirtus Dixon's going to say about me, or I wonder if he's going to shoot me an SMS or a direct message on Instagram and say, hey, man, wish you best of luck on the next life here. I always kind of wonder what people will call me, but mentor is just one of those words. I feel like that's like the gold medal, dude, isn't it?
Right.
Like, if you're a profession, if you're called a mentor by like somebody like me, that's like watching those old kung fu flicks, right? And it's like, master.
Oh, yes, that's
Is there anything better than being called a mentor? Seriously, tell me if I am wrong. Is there anything better than being a mentor?
Your Majesty. That's what you can call me.
You know what, Don? So I'm sitting here, I'm looking at my computer screen, and I have a picture on my screensaver, and I've never published a book, but I have the covers of my first 2 books that I'm going to publish. They're already pre-drafted, right? I built them myself, and like, real quick, but it's something I want to look at every single day, and it's something I talk about every single day now. And the reason I do that is because one of my mentors, a guy by the name of Tony Geary, and here's what's funny about mentors, again, back to not knowing how big an impact they have on people's lives. I've only ever spent about 10 hours with Tony Geary. I had the pleasure. He's a world-renowned business coach and speaker, and he's really expensive, and someone else paid for my trip up there, so I soaked it up. But he told me very crystal clear, there are 3 ways to cement anything in your mind. Write it down, visualize it, and congruent self-talk, right? And if you are really high, then congruent means no, it just means to talk about things in the here and now, positive, affirmative tense, right? Talk about things the same way they're really going to happen. And so the reason I have these 2 books right here on my screen is because I want to visualize them every day, and I want to talk about them as if they're going to happen. And the title of my second book is called Influence is a Superpower.
Love it.
And I never realized this, and it's funny, Don, because you actually helped me crystallize this thinking even further. When you come up with, when you have an idea and you turn it into sort of, like a platform or a position that you're going to take. It's a message you want to deliver, right? Like I've believed as an I in this personality profile that I'm influential, right? And I've known that that's a skill of mine for a while. And I can think back, I convinced my beautiful wife, I definitely married up. Like I influenced her, into coming along this ride with me. Like I know influence is a skill set of mine, and I've attempted to hone it, but you never really understand what it means until, again, you take on that role of mentor and you start to learn more about the trust and respect and love that exists between that mentor and mentee, but more importantly, the responsibility you have. Like, yes. It's a really big responsibility to be a mentor. And yes. I rarely thought of myself as a mentor. I was on a constant quest for mentors. And in doing so for the last 20 years, I've learned from and been mentored by some of the most amazing people from all walks of this life, all parts of this world. And now, I find myself in a position, as you said, Don, no, man, there's no greater feeling except for dad, right? Except for dad, and that's the only thing that I can be called that is more flattering and makes me feel, something. But as far as being a mentor goes, man, it's a superpower, right? You have influence over people's lives, and that, man, I take that super seriously, and I'm honored to be recognized as such in many regards. But what's crazy is, like, just to have that title in my real estate brokerage, that's cool. I've mentored a lot of different folks in a lot of different businesses, but here's what I've realized is once you take on that superpower, that persona, right, of influence, now you have to be aware all the time. Like, right. You have to be aware of what you're doing, what you're saying to everyone. Like, again, just back to my family, because I talk about that all the time. Like, I am very specific and deliberate and careful with that trust and respect that I receive from my son, because I know he's sitting there looking up at me with what I do, what I say, and how I react. Because I'm a mentor.
That's the most natural mentor you can be is dad or mom.
Yep.
But guys, guess what? Look at that. Our hour is up. So I want to say thank you. I'm looking forward to talking to you both. I'm sure I'm going to be talking to you tomorrow. But thank you for joining us. Goodbye. Sorry. All right, guys. Have a great one.
My pleasure.
My pleasure.
Thank you.